Stop scrolling for 1 second, because what I am about to tell you might change the way you look at your old jewelry box forever. Right now, in drawers, in old purses, in dusty boxes at the back of closets, in cabinets that have not been opened in years, millions of people all over the world are sitting on pieces of jewelry worth hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars, and they have absolutely no idea. Why? Because these pieces do not look expensive. They do not have a huge diamond sitting on top. They do not have a fancy name written in gold letters on a shiny tag inside a velvet box. They look like simple, everyday costume jewelry, the kind of thing you would find at a flea market for $5, the kind of thing your grandmother wore to church every single Sunday without ever thinking twice about it, the kind of thing that gets tossed into a donation bag without a second glance. But here's the truth that most people never find out until it is far too late. Some of the most valuable jewelry in the entire world is not made of gold, is not made of silver, and does not have a single real diamond in it at all. It is costume jewelry. Cheap materials, glass stones, plated metal, plastic beads, all of it put together by hand decades ago. These pieces were never meant to be valuable when they were first made. They were made to be affordable, to be fun, to be fashionable for the average person who could not dream of buying real gold or real gemstones. But because of who made them, when they were made, how they were made, and how rare they have become today, collectors all over the world are now paying absolutely insane amounts of money for them. I'm talking about pieces that sell for $200, $500, sometimes even over $1,000 at auction, and the person who owned it had no idea what they were holding until someone finally told them the truth. Imagine finding out that the ugly little brooch sitting in the bottom of your jewelry box, the one you always thought was just cheap plastic junk, is actually worth more than your monthly rent. Imagine realizing that the necklace you almost threw away last spring during a big cleaning day could have paid for a vacation. This happens more often than you think, and it is happening right now to people who have absolutely no idea, which is exactly why I made this video today. I am going to walk you through common pieces of costume jewelry, the kind that almost everyone has seen before, the kind that looks completely normal and unimportant, and I am going to explain exactly why some of these pieces are secretly worth a small fortune. Some of you watching this video right now might already own one of these pieces without even realizing it. I'm sitting quietly in a drawer, waiting to be discovered. I promise you, by the time this video ends, you're going to want to run straight to your jewelry box and check everything you own, because some of what I'm about to tell you is going to completely surprise you. So do not skip ahead, do not click away, and definitely do not multitask through this one, because if you miss even a small detail, you could be missing out on real, actual money that has been sitting right under your nose this entire time. Stay with me all the way to the end, because near the final part of this video, I'm also going to show you the simple, easy signs you can look for yourself right at home, with nothing but your own two eyes, so you can figure out whether your own jewelry might be one of these hidden treasures. Even if you do not know anything at all about jewelry, antiques, or collecting, think about how many times you or someone in your family has cleaned out a closet, packed up an old dresser, or gone through a relative's belongings after they passed away, and just tossed a box of old jewelry straight into the donation pile without even opening it properly. Think about the countless yard sales and estate sales where boxes of tangled necklaces and mismatched earrings get sold for $1 or $2 because nobody bothered to look closely at what was actually inside. This happens every single day all across the country, and it is one of the biggest reasons why so much valuable costume jewelry ends up in landfills, donation bins, or bargain bins instead of in the hands of someone who understands its real worth. The sad truth is that most people simply do not know what to look for, and jewelry stores rarely tell you the full story, because it is not in their interest to point out that the little brooch you brought in for cleaning might actually be worth more than the brand new piece they're trying to sell you. That is exactly the gap I want to help close today, because knowledge like this should not be locked away for antique dealers and professional collectors only. Everyday people deserve to know the real value of the thing sitting quietly in their own homes, especially when it comes to items that have been passed down through generations, carrying both sentimental and financial value at the same time. Let's start talking about the brands and the styles that collectors are quietly obsessing over. One of the biggest names you need to remember is Trifari. If you have ever picked up an old brooch or an old necklace and flipped it over to see the word Trifari stamped somewhere on the back, please do not throw that piece away, and please do not sell it for a few dollars at a garage sale before checking its real value. Trifari was one of the largest and most respected costume jewelry companies in America for most of the 20th century, and while a lot of their pieces are common and only worth a small amount, certain older designs, especially ones shaped like animals, flowers, birds, or fruit, and decorated with sparkling rhinestones, are now selling for hundreds of dollars because collectors love the incredible craftsmanship, the fine detail, and the rich history connected to the brand. Another name that shows up constantly in old jewelry boxes is Coro. Coro made millions and millions of pieces over the years, so a lot of what they made is common and not particularly valuable. But there's one specific style that collectors go absolutely crazy for, called the duet pin. This was a clever design where one large brooch could actually be split apart into two separate smaller pins, which was a genius idea at the time, but also means that very few complete sets have survived undamaged until today. If you happen to have a complete undamaged duet pin sitting in your collection, you could be looking at a piece worth several $100s. Moving along, there is also the delicate and beautiful work of Miriam Haskell, a jewelry designer whose pieces often look fragile and old-fashioned, with tiny seed pearls, hand-wired flowers, and intricate layers of small details that were clearly made with a lot of patience and skill. What makes her work tricky to identify is that a lot of her early pieces were never obviously signed the way other big-name brands were. So plenty of people out there own an authentic Miriam Haskell piece and have absolutely no clue, thinking it is just old family jewelry with no real value. But serious collectors specifically hunt for her work at estate sales, thrift stores, and online auctions, and pieces can easily sell for several $100s once verified as authentic. Now, here comes one of the biggest surprises on this entire list, and it involves something called Bakelite. Bakelite was an early type of hard plastic that became extremely popular in the 1930s and 1940s for making colorful bangles, thick bracelets, chunky brooches, and bold necklaces, often in bright, cheerful colors like cherry red, butterscotch yellow, deep forest green, and rich amber orange. To the average person, especially someone who does not know much about vintage jewelry, Bakelite pieces look like nothing more than cheap plastic toys or costume accessories from a bygone era, the kind of thing you would expect to find in a bargain bin. But here is the incredible part. Genuine, original Bakelite jewelry from that era is now considered some of the most valuable costume jewelry in the entire world, with certain rare bangles and bracelets selling for well over $1,000 to serious collectors who specialize in this exact material. There is actually a simple test you can try at home to check if something might be real Bakelite. If you run the piece under hot water for a few seconds and then smell it closely, real Bakelite often gives off a strong chemical smell, similar to formaldehyde, which is a telltale sign that you might be holding a hidden treasure rather than a piece of cheap plastic. Another brand worth remembering is Weiss, a company known for using unusually colored rhinestones that were quite rare for their time, including strange and beautiful shades of soft pink, deep purple, and even solid black, colors that are genuinely difficult to find in most modern costume jewelry today. Because of this unique color quality, Weiss pieces are highly sought after by collectors who specifically build collections around unusual and rare stone colors, and finding a signed Weiss piece in good condition can lead to a very pleasant surprise if you decide to have it appraised. Then there is Eisenberg, which actually started out as a clothing company, not a jewelry company at all. In the beginning, Eisenberg only made jewelry as small decorative pieces to be sewn directly onto their dresses and outfits, simply as an added design touch. However, the jewelry itself became so popular and so admired that people actually started cutting the pieces off the dresses, just so they could keep and wear the jewelry separately, which is honestly a pretty wild piece of fashion history. Because of this unusual origin story, and because of the large size and dazzling sparkle of many original Eisenberg brooches from the 1930s and 1940s, these pieces are now extremely valuable among collectors, particularly the bigger, bolder designs that catch your eye from across the room. True. Another category worth paying close attention to is anything featuring old Czech glass stones, especially pieces made before the Second World War. These glass stones were carefully cut and faceted entirely by hand, one at a time, resulting in a level of sparkle, depth, and light reflection that is honestly very difficult to replicate using modern machine-cut glass. Because of this incredible handmade quality, well-preserved pieces featuring a genuine old Czech glass are treated like small works of art by collectors, and they are willing to pay a serious premium to add these pieces to their personal collections. Now here comes a category that genuinely surprises almost everyone who hears about it for the first time, and that is old mourning jewelry. This type of jewelry includes black-colored pieces made from materials like jet, onyx, or vulcanite, and it was originally worn during the Victorian era as a way for people to visibly show that they were grieving the loss of a loved one. At first glance, this kind of jewelry might look plain, dark, sad, or even a little bit unsettling to modern eyes that are used to bright, shiny, colorful accessories. However, genuine antique mourning jewelry, especially pieces that include detailed hair art or intricate hand carvings, can actually be worth hundreds of dollars to the right specialized collector who understands and appreciates this unique and deeply historical style. Another brand that deserves your attention is Hobe, a company that specialized in creating Renaissance-inspired designs using imitation pearls, richly colored glass stones, and beautifully detailed metalwork that often looks like it belongs in a museum display case rather than an ordinary jewelry box. Hobe pieces from the mid-1900s are becoming increasingly harder to find in good, undamaged condition as the years go by, and this growing scarcity is steadily pushing their overall value higher and higher with each passing year, making them a smart thing to hold on to if you happen to have one. And finally, there is Schiaparelli, a bold and daring fashion house that created unusual costume jewelry using striking, unexpected colors like hot pink, electric blue, and vivid orange, colors that were considered wildly ahead of their time when they were first introduced to the public. These pieces were treated almost like miniature works of wearable art rather than simple everyday accessories. And today, certain signed Schiaparelli pieces sell for well over $1,000 at specialty jewelry auctions that focus specifically on rare, artistic, historically significant costume pieces. There is also something worth mentioning about how these companies operated, because understanding their history actually helps explain why certain pieces are worth so much more than others today. Many of these companies produce jewelry for department stores, catalog companies, and even Hollywood costume designers, which means that some pieces you might assume were purely decorative were actually worn by famous actresses on the silver screen, or used in major motion pictures during the golden age of cinema. When a piece can be traced back to a specific film, a specific decade, or a specific limited production run, its value can jump dramatically, sometimes doubling or tripling compared to a similar-looking piece with no known history behind it. This is why serious collectors do not just look at the design of a piece, they also try to research its background, checking old catalogs, old advertisements, and even old patent records to figure out exactly when a piece was made and how many similar pieces might still exist today. Condition also plays an enormous role in determining value, because a piece with all of its original stones intact, no missing pieces, no heavy tarnishing, and no obvious repairs, will always be worth significantly more than a similar piece that has been damaged or poorly restored over the years. This is another reason why it is so important to handle old jewelry carefully, storing it properly, instead of letting it get tangled up with other pieces in a drawer, because scratches, bent prongs, and lost stones can quickly reduce the value of an otherwise valuable find. Another thing worth understanding is that trends among collectors can shift over time, meaning a style that was considered only mildly interesting 10 years ago might suddenly become highly desirable today because of a renewed interest in vintage fashion, a popular television show, or a museum exhibit that brings attention back to a certain era or designer. This constantly shifting demand is part of why it pays to hold onto older jewelry rather than immediately getting rid of it, because value in this space can rise steadily over time as fewer original pieces remain in circulation, and as new generations of collectors discover and fall in love with these older styles all over again. If you happen to own even one signed piece from any of these names, whether it is Trifari, Coro, Miriam Haskell, Bakelite, Weiss, Eisenberg, Czech Glass, Morning Jewelry, Hobe, or Schiaparelli, you genuinely need to stop what you're doing and take a much closer look at what you have, because you might be holding something far more valuable than you ever imagined possible. Now here is exactly what I want you to do. The moment this video ends, go straight to your jewelry box, your grandmother's old jewelry case, that dusty container sitting in the back of your closet, or that forgotten box hiding somewhere in your attic or basement, and start carefully examining every single piece one at a time. Look closely at the back of every brooch, check the clasp of every necklace, and inspect the inside of every bracelet for small stamped names, tiny hidden signatures, or unusual markings that most people completely overlook because they simply do not know to look for them in the first place. That one little detail, a tiny name stamped into the metal, could genuinely be the difference between owning a piece that is worth absolutely nothing and owning a piece that is quietly worth hundreds of dollars to the right buyer. Please do not judge a piece of jewelry just because it looks old, looks like cheap plastic, or looks completely unimportant at first glance. Because, as you just learned throughout this entire video, some of the most valuable jewelry in the world was never made from real gold or genuine diamonds in the first place. It was made from simple glass, ordinary plastic, and clever, thoughtful design, created decades ago by talented companies and designers that most people today completely underestimate or have never even heard of. And please, before you ever decide to sell, donate, or throw away any old jewelry, whether it belonged to you, your mother, or your grandmother, take just a few extra minutes to research it properly online or show it to someone who genuinely knows what they are looking for, because countless people have accidentally given away a small fortune without ever realizing what they truly had in their hands. If this video opened your eyes to something you never knew before today, please do me a small favor and give this video a thumbs up, because